The year is 1973. CIA Director Richard Helms gives a single, chilling order: destroy every document related to a top-secret program known only as MKUltra. For days, the shredders at Langley run without stopping, turning 2 decades of secrets into confetti. Every file, every name, every horrific detail erased from history. But they miss one box. 20,000 pages of financial records, misfiled by a clerk, survive the purge. And what they describe is worse than any conspiracy theorist ever imagined, because it's all true. This isn't a theory. On April 13, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles officially authorized Project MKUltra, a program explicitly designed to research and develop mind control.
So this one is real. No speculation, the government admits it. The name itself, MKUltra, is on official documents.
MKUltra sounds like the final boss in a video game you can't beat, or a really bad energy drink.
It's one of history's greatest ironies, a secret program born from Cold War paranoia that would inadvertently help fuel the 1960s counterculture.
Wait, the CIA gave us hippies? That's the most elaborate backfire in history. J. Edgar Hoover must have been spinning in his grave.
The program's origin lies in the height of the Cold War. The agency was terrified of Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean brainwashing techniques they believed were being used on U.S. prisoners of war.
Hold on, they thought there was a mind control gap? Was that based on actual intelligence or just paranoia?
It was mostly paranoia, but it was potent. They were convinced the Soviets had a breakthrough, and they felt they had to catch up, no matter the cost.
So it was an arms race, but with brains. Instead of who can build the bigger bomb, it's who can make someone forget their own name first.
Exactly. The official goals were twofold. First, they wanted a truth serum for interrogating captured spies. Second, and much more vaguely, they wanted to figure out how to control human behavior to, in their words, weaponize intelligence agents.
Weaponize is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Does that mean making them resistant to torture, or turning them into programmable assassins?
Forget the spies. I would have used a truth serum on my college roommate. I knew he was the one who finished the milk.
And the man they picked to lead this was a CIA chemist named Sidney Gottlieb. He was given a nearly unlimited budget and became known, not inaccurately, as the poisoner-in-chief.
Sidney Gottlieb. So he's the architect of all this. How do you earn a nickname like Poisoner-in-Chief even within the CIA?
I'm more stuck on the unlimited budget part. You know you're working for the government when the line item just says mind control stuff with a $sign and an infinity symbol.
And he spent that money. The program's reach was enormous, spanning over 150 sub-projects at more than 80 different institutions. We're talking universities, hospitals, even federal prisons across the United States and Canada.
Wait, not just government labs? They were running these experiments inside public universities and hospitals on whose authority?
That's the most messed up secret government Kickstarter I've ever heard of. All these places were unknowingly stretching for the same funding goal.
LSD quickly became the program's signature drug. Gottlieb was so convinced of its potential that at one point, he had the CIA arrange to purchase the entire world supply from its creator, Sandoz Laboratories in Switzerland.
They cornered the market on acid. That's not a business plan. That's what a supervillain does in a movie. They were trying to start a monopoly on existential dread.
How do you even put in a purchase order for the world's entire supply of a hallucinogen? Was there a form for that?
And that leads to the most fundamental crime of MKUltra, its use of unwitting subjects. The CIA didn't test these drugs on volunteers. They tested them on American citizens without their knowledge or consent.
That's the line. That's the line between a secret research project and a string of criminal assaults. These weren't enemy combatants.
Okay, hold on. Unwitting? So just random people? That's not science, that's just a crime with a lab coat.
And they cast a wide net. It wasn't just soldiers. Subjects included psychiatric patients, prisoners, and random civilians who were lured to CIA-run brothels for the express purpose of dosing them with acid.
They weaponized mental health care and the prison system. These people were targeted specifically because they had no power to fight back or complain.
I'm sorry, you're just gonna breeze past CIA-run brothels? That's a business model I did not see coming. The worst Yelp reviews in history.
That was part of one of the most infamous sub-projects, codenamed Operation Midnight Climax. The agency set up safe houses in San Francisco and New York, hired prostitutes to bring men back, and then dosed them with LSD to observe their behavior through two-way mirrors.
Operation Midnight Climax? Did they let a 14-year-old name the projects? What's next? Operation Super Awesome Secret Base.
Beyond the name, the methodology is pure voyeurism. What scientifically valid data could you possibly gather from watching people trip through a two-way mirror?
The research went far beyond drugs. They explored hypnosis, extreme electroshock therapy, sensory deprivation, and a technique they called psychic driving, playing looped audio messages to subjects for weeks on end.
Psychic driving. Was the theory there that you could just override a personality with enough repetition?
So they invented the Spotify playlist from hell. Just one song, forever. I think I had that experience at a department store during Christmas once.
But this all stopped being theoretical. The human cost became undeniable with the death of Frank Olson, a U.S. Army scientist who was secretly dosed with LSD in his coffee during a CIA retreat in November 1953.
He was one of their own, a scientist working for the Army. They drugged an insider without his knowledge.
Okay, that's not a joke. That's actually really dark. He wasn't a prisoner, he was a colleague.
9 days after being dosed, after a severe psychotic breakdown, Frank Olson plunged to his death from a 13th-floor hotel window in New York City. For decades, the official cause of death was suicide.
And his family fought that ruling for 22 years. They knew something was wrong, but the CIA stonewalled them until the church committee uncovered the dosing.
22 years. They let his family believe he just broke for 2 decades. That's the cover-up right there.
And that cover-up went right to the top. In 1973, with the Watergate investigation breathing down the neck of the entire intelligence community, CIA Director Richard Helms gave the order: destroy everything related to MKUltra. Gottlieb personally oversaw the shredding.
So it was a CYA operation. They weren't trying to hide it from the Soviets. They were hiding it from Congress. The walls were closing in.
That's the most panicked hide the evidence move ever. It's not deleting your browser history. It's setting the entire library on fire because you checked out a weird book once.
But they made one critical mistake. A trove of 20,000 financial documents, just accounting records, detailing payments to researchers, had been misfiled years earlier. They survived the purge.
The irony is incredible. A program dedicated to achieving total control was ultimately brought down by a simple bureaucratic error. They couldn't even control their own filing cabinets.
So the hero of this story is a clumsy clerk from accounting who put a box on the wrong shelf. You can't write this stuff.
And that was the thread the investigators pulled. In 1975, Senator Frank Church's new committee used those financial records as a roadmap to expose the entire program in televised hearings that absolutely shocked the nation.
And the Church Committee was a landmark event. For the first time, Congress was pulling back the curtain on the CIA's deepest secrets, and America was watching it happen live.
I would pay so much money to see the reality TV version of that. Real Housewives of the Intelligence Community. The drama.
All right, let's draw the lines. First and most importantly, confirmed, Project MKUltra was a real, illegal, and officially sanctioned CIA program that ran for 2 decades, from 1953 right up until its formal termination in 1973.
That's not speculation. That's a historical fact, confirmed by the government's own investigations and surviving documents.
So, baseline, this one isn't a theory. This happened. Check.
Also confirmed, the CIA drugged unwitting American and Canadian civilians with LSD and other psychoactive substances as part of this program. This is substantiated by CIA records and the direct testimony of victims and their families.
We have the payment records to the institutions and doctors involved, and we have the heartbreaking stories from people whose lives were shattered.
So not only did it happen, but the absolute worst parts you hear about, dosing people without their consent. That happened too. It's not a conspiracy if you keep the receipts.
Then, confirmed, the CIA deliberately destroyed the majority of the program's records in 1973. This isn't a conspiracy theory. Sidney Gottlieb and other officials admitted it directly to the church committee.
They admitted it under oath. The justification was that the program was no longer necessary, but the timing, right as Watergate was closing in, is impossible to ignore.
The classic, "I'm burning these files because I'm so innocent" defense. It's a bold move, I'll give them that. Doesn't usually work for my browser history, though.
And finally, confirmed, the program directly led to the death of at least one individual, Frank Olson, and caused severe, lasting psychological damage to an unknown number of others.
The Olson family eventually received a settlement and a presidential apology, but for the countless unnamed victims in prisons and hospitals, there was no justice.
That's the part that gets me. For every Frank Olson we know about, there could be 100 people who just went home different and their families never knew why.
Now we move into speculation, the biggest question. Did any of it actually work? The consensus among historians is that the program was an operational failure. It never produced a reliable truth serum or a programmable Manchurian candidate.
That's right. For all the horror, the science was junk. They couldn't reliably control anyone. They mostly just produced psychosis and terror.
So they did all that, ruined all those lives, and they didn't even get a working super spy out of it? That's the most evil and incompetent project in history. It's like trying to build a death ray and all you get is a leaky faucet.
And that leads to the most haunting piece of speculation, the full scope. Because the most critical research files were destroyed, the world will likely never know the true number of victims or the full extent of the experiments.
That gap in the record is where the modern conspiracy theories live. The known facts are bad enough, but the unknown allows for almost anything to be plausible.
The shredder is the real winner here. It ate the evidence and left us with a ghost story where we have to imagine the scariest parts ourselves.
The MKUltra story taps into a primal fear, the loss of personal autonomy to a hidden, unaccountable power. It's the ultimate violation of the individual by the state.
It's the idea that your own mind isn't safe, that the government you're supposed to trust could see your consciousness as a battlefield and your thoughts as a target.
It's the ultimate "they're out to get me" story, but with the receipt from the government proving they really were.
And that receipt is why MKUltra functions as the Rosetta Stone for so many other theories. Because its core is verifiably true, it lends an air of plausibility to other, less proven claims about government overreach.
It becomes Exhibit A in every argument. If they were willing to do this, the thinking goes, what wouldn't they do? It poisons the well for any official denial, forever.
It's the one free square on the conspiracy bingo card. You can always point to it and say, well, you can't say it's impossible.
From there, it just bleeds into pop culture. It's the go-to explanation for bizarre celebrity behavior and directly inspired shows like Stranger Things.
Oh, completely. Anytime a celebrity stares into the middle distance for 3 seconds on a red carpet, Twitter starts looking for their handler.
Which, again, trivializes the actual suffering of the program's real victims. It turns their trauma into a meme.
And the mystery is the engine that keeps it going. The fact that the most damning records were destroyed means the worst parts of the story can only be imagined, which allows the myth to grow far beyond the documented facts.
That's the perfect storm. A confirmed conspiracy with a deliberately created black hole at its center. What we know is horrific, but what we have to imagine is potentially limitless.
If you want more of this kind of thing, actual evidence, actual context, actual weirdness, we're here every week. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one.
Unlike most theories we cover, MKUltra isn't a debate about if it happened. We know it did. The chilling questions that remain are how far it truly went.
And whether any lessons were actually learned. That's the part I keep coming back to.
And whether my toaster is still taking notes. I'm watching you, you crumb-hoarding monster.
Next week, we're heading to the Denver airport to investigate the bizarre murals, secret underground tunnels, and that giant blue horse with the glowing red eyes. Don't miss it.
We'll see you then.
Stay paranoid.